lots of different amps, different styles, more gain, less gain, but a basic sound. The sound that I used for years and years and years. A Fender amp clean, and then do something to that. Add pedals to it. Crank it up if you wanted that sound. The sound that you've heard a million times. It's launched a million great tones. What does it sound like? It's a sweet sound. It's glassy. That's what you hear a lot. A bright sound. It's kind of a scooped sound. There's not a lot of mid-range in there. It sounds almost like Leo Fender was trying to get the sound of a strummed acoustic guitar. Fender amps, especially the lower wattage ones, as you turn it up, there's a little bit of drive to it. There's a little bit of grit in there. It's subtle. It's not always pristine. That in itself can help you with your pedals, help you with some lead, cranking it up a little bit. We had two different types of Fender sounds that we're going to hear today. And these are all in the Spark Amp. We're going to take a look at the Blackface 60 sound and the Tweed sound, the 50s sound, and what the difference of those are when they're clean, and also what the difference is when you've got them cranked up a little bit. What are the different Fender clean sounds that we can get from the Spark Amp? We've got the Black Duo, the Blues Boy, the Lux Verb. When you try these out, usually you're trying these different tones through presets. And you've got the volume cranked, you've got the gain cranked on a lot of them, you've got compressor on all of them. Most every preset has the compressor on there, and for good reason. The compressor on the Spark Amp sounds great. You may have a drive pedal on there, EQ on there. We're not going to deal with that. We're going to turn all that. All I'm going to leave on, I'm going to leave the gate on and the noise gate, and I'm going to leave the reverb on. Spark Amp does not have a spring reverb, which is usually what you'd hear with a Fender amp. But the room reverb that I have here sounds very nice with these. Let's talk about if we had a real amp in the room, how will we set up a good, clean tone? Basically, with a Fender amp, we have a couple issues. A lot of the Fender amps have a bright switch. You could try playing without the bright switch or with the bright switch. In the Spark Amp, they don't deal with that at all. None of these amps have a bright switch on there. But what you're going to do is try to get a nice bright sound without a woofy bass. Before I start the overall volume level, set somewhere between 3 and 5. With a Fender amp, when you go past 5, things start to break up a little bit. And in the Spark Amp, we have both a gain and a volume control. This gets a little confusing for people. The gain is the preamp gain. It'll break up the preamp tubes. The volume is the power amp tubes. They tend to break up in a little different way. We're going to start with the bass control. So what I like to do is turn the bass all the way off. You can hear there, everything starts to kind of sound a little boxier. And then I'm going to slowly bring the bass control up until you hear a hum. Next, I jump over to the treble. I notice a lot of these are pretty dull sounding, especially with this guitar that I'm playing. So I usually will crank that all the way up and then back it off until it's not hurting your ears. The Fender sound already has a scooped mid sound, meaning that if you saw an EQ curve, the mids, the middle of that spectrum would be lower than the lows and the highs. But sometimes with a mid control on a Fender amp, things might get a little boxy sounding if you don't put up too much. So I like to keep it around 9 o'clock. So this is like 3, 4 on the dial. And you can roll your volume down a little bit. I have mine all the way up on 10. Especially if you're getting a little bit of a gain, a little bit too much distortion, you want it to be more pristine sound. Depending on the style of music that you're looking for. With a Fender amp, if I had a Fender amp in the room, that's how I would start it off. I'd start it off with getting the volume level right, worrying about the bass, going to the treble, and then going to the middle right there. At that point, you've got something that you can build off of. If that's all you need, you're good to go. But say you needed some sort of a distortion, maybe like a tube screamer type sound. A tube screamer over a Fender amp style is a really neat sound. It has a lot of mids in a tube screamer, so it pushes a lot of that area where we scoop the mids out, or they're already scooped out, pushes those up, so it gives a nice even sound that has a lot of sustain to it. Hey, thanks for watching. I've got something for you. It's a free gift. It's called Get Moving Guitar. If you've had problems with your practicing, or maybe you never really knew how to practice correctly at all, it's going to help you out right away. And it's designed to go along with the Spark amplifier. You can get it by clicking the link right below in the description. If you'd like to support the podcast and get more of this content that's actually designed to help you become the guitarist that you've always wanted to be, sign up for my VIP supporter program for as little as $3 a month. You'll get access to the private podcast and the backstage area. And I'll see you soon. Thanks for hanging out. See you in the next video.